Hi, I'm Gergely and tell you what. Paint your guitar. Recently I purchased this DIY guitar and decided to give it some custom looks, the body and the headstock as well, and I recorded the whole process. I want to share with you how I painted the back of the guitar. So first of all, I sanded down the guitar's body with a 120 grit sandpaper. Then I primed it with a sandable hard gesso made by Gordon. I gave it 4 layers of gesso, sanding with the same sandpaper between each layers, and when it was done, I finished the final layer with a 240 grit one. You don't necessarily have to use this method. You can get a spray primer if it gives a good bondage between wood and acrylic paint. Then I selected the artwork. It is a detail of a painting called The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. Once I downloaded it onto my phone, I took a screenshot of the picture and scaled it to the right size. It also created a 3x3 grid on the picture, which was very helpful during tracing. I divided the picture into 2 parts and printed them out in black and white, because my printer gives a more detailed printout in black and white than in color. Next, I trimmed the white edges of the printouts and fixed them together using masking tape. After that, I stuck some black carbon paper onto the back of the pictures. Once it was done, I turned the sheets around and found their place on the guitar. Then I trimmed them to the correct shape and taped them tightly onto the guitar's body. After that, with a blue ballpoint pen, I started the tracing. I used a white 3x3 grid as a guideline, finishing 1 square at a time. Here, the blue pen lines helped me to trace my tracing, as it was clear which part I finished and which part I didn't. Starting from the top left corner and finishing at the bottom right, I did a very detailed sketch. Not only the shape of the objects, people and creatures, but also the tiniest shadows. The whole drawing took about 3 hours to complete. Once I finished the tracing, I removed the tapes on 3 sides. I was ready to stick them back on if there is something missing from the sketch. I liked it, so I removed the sheets. My sketch looked like this. When the sketch was done, I started to paint. I designed the guitar to have a kind of burst look, and on the outside there will be these Eddie Van Halen stripes on the red base, and on the inside there will be the actual painting. So first I painted the outside around with a cadmium red light hue. It's made by Liquitex. It's from their basics line, which is very affordable. I'm using 3 brands of paint here: Liquitex Basics, Sennelier Abstract and Daler Rowney System 3 acrylics. They are all inexpensive and of good quality. Once the outside was done, I decided to look in the sketch, because if I just leave it the way it was, and I can smudge the sketch lines. This is a very transparent paint, a yellow ochre from Liquitex. So first of all, I'm painting the black and dark parts. I'm doing it this way because it's easier for your eyes to see the darker shades correctly on a blank surface than the lighter ones. Once the dark colors are established, then the lighter tones are easier to identify. The type of paint I'm using is acrylic. It's diluted with water so I can spread it nicely on the surface, resulting in a really slim film, so when I will apply the varnish, the finish will be very smooth and shiny. Because of this, and also because acrylic paint is weakly pigmented anyways, you will have to apply a few layers if you want an opaque color. I did about 4 or 5 layers on the edges of the guitar with the red paint to achieve an even color depth without visible brush marks. Here, apart from the larger black parts, I am doing a very detailed job following all the sketch lines. I am trying to cover all the lines from the carbon paper because if I wouldn't do that, they would leave small grooves in the varnish when I'm finishing the guitar. And then I switched to the wrong blue. It is cyan blue, and when this painting was made by Bosch, this color doesn't exist in paint. They used ultramarine blue sparingly because it was very expensive. At this point, I'm using my blue paint on the grain parts too. Then again I'm using Mars Black on the smaller black details and shadows. If you're painting in acrylics, I really recommend Mars Black instead of Bone Black or Ivory Black, because it covers much better. Its type of pigment is more suitable for acrylic paint than ivory blacks. Ivory black is perfect in oils but not in acrylics. Once I finished with those, I start with the brighter colors. I already applied some yellow in the middle of the painting. Now it's again red. I'm using here a number 1 round brush just to make the whole picture look a bit more painterly. For this reason, I'm trying to cover the whole area unevenly in acrylics because it would look very plasticky, which basically the paint is. Due to the fact that not all of the colors have the same tinting strength, because some pigments are more transparent, if you see the white parts already in the painting, I did some of those to create the base for different colors of higher transparency. Titanium white is a really strong pigment, which means that I can just cover up the darker base color. Then I can add more delicate lighter colors on top of it later. And that's why I like acrylics, because it dries pretty quickly, dries within an hour or so, and then you can repaint those white surfaces in the wanted color. And also it helps you to create some glazing, which is layering colors. So because acrylic is kind of a transparent paint, you can actually apply different colors in multiple layers within a reasonable frame of time. Let's say If you have a red layer, you can apply a brownish hue on top of it without the need of mixing a reddish brown and painting it in two layers. Here I'm using ultramarine blue. It's actually a greenish part of the painting and I am using the blue just as a base. You can actually achieve green in a couple of different ways. You can mix blue with yellow or yellow ochre or any kind of yellow, or you can mix black with yellow if you want a darker shade of green like an olive green. I don't really use factory made greens because I've never met with a good quality one yet. Okay, so at the first layer I'm not really doing a very detailed job with the lighter colors. As I'm adding more and more additional layers with different colors, that's how the details in the painting get more and more delicate.
Bring the funk back.
Here I'm using different shades of red, but you can get away with magenta mixed with yellow in different proportions if you want to have different shades of red. Acrylic paint actually have a few kinds of bad properties. One of them is that it tends to darken while it dries. When it's wet, it's much lighter than when it's dry. It has something to do with the acrylic binder that's in the paint, so you have to watch out for that. Also, if you are doing layers, you have to wait for the first layer to completely dry before you apply the next one, because if it's not completely dry, you will lift the first layer off the surface and you don't want that, I believe. I was talking about the different paint brands I'm using. When I painted my first guitar, because this one is actually the second one, so when I painted the first one, I didn't go for any brands. I didn't know anything about painting. So I used actually a back to school grade paint, which is like really the bottom of the paint chain. I did a good job. The paint was okay in terms of brightness and the colors were okay. It's just that I don't know how much light fast it will be, which means that if a paint is not light fast enough, by time the colors will fade away. That's why I recommend a bit more expensive paint that has a good light fastness if you paint something you really value. I know that people tend to save money on these kind of things, because a few of my friends complained about spending more on the paint than what is really necessary, but a guitar is already not a cheap thing, and you can get a set of painting by the mentioned brands for 20 or 30 quids, and that's enough for a guitar. I would recommend to go for that. We are nearing the end of the painting, and at this moment it looks a bit dull. The colors are not too bright, but once we varnish it, it will come back to life. I use the gloss acrylic varnish on the guitar, but anything will do that is protective enough and has a good adhesion with acrylic paint. I have a few other advices here. you have to protect the bottom side of the guitar while painting. When you apply the primer and then when you sketch and paint the first side of the guitar, a cardboard sheet will do. Just make sure that it's not painted, because the paint will stain the primer. When you do the second side, however, you have to protect the already painted side with an old t-shirt or something similar. Also, don't rush. When I made my first guitar, I decided to paint only an hour each day, because I was inexperienced and didn't want to become frustrated. It took me weeks to paint it, but every time I listened to some of my favorite musics or a good audiobook, so it was a nice experience. The purpose of this video was to show you how to paint your guitar, but actually this sketching method can be used for other kinds of paintings as well. If you just want to make one painting in a canvas and don't want to go to art school for that, you can paint it this way too. I really hope that you enjoyed my little demonstration. I hope that the information in this video are helpful for you, and thank you for watching. Happy painting!